So we're coming up to the start of let's call them summer months. This is Ron Weiss-Sikarski for the Black Hole of Real Estate. And hey, we're coming up on June 1st, and the summer's ahead. School is really letting out for a lot of Florida. And around the country, most all the kids are going to be out of school very, very soon. And with that, we're wondering, where is the summer market heading this year? And is it going to be the same or different than we've experienced most of the last 10, 20 years? Because we normally see an increase in activity in June because schools are out and taxes are done and people are making decisions about retirements and vacations and getting married and getting divorced and things that go on over the summer months. So because we have a few different things going on this year than maybe the last couple of years, it might be a little bit different. So let me just run through three things that I think are going to make the summer season be more like an August, September season. So, the first thing is we have this government shutdown still kicking around over here. And even though it's only a partial shutdown, there's a reconciliation bill out there that isn't quite finished up yet. I think it'll get finished. But right now, I think a lot of people are saying, oh, they're going to fund the government. Is that still going on right now? So that creates uncertainty. So that's one thing. We have whatever's going on in Iran right now for our side. And I think it's for the right causes. We'll let you fill in your own political blank there. Really, I want to stick to the real estate today. But let's suppose we come up with a solution that makes sense and helps us all feel safer, ourselves and for our kids in our future with the Iran deal that's going to come up. But until that happens, it's going to have a little uncertainty. And along with that, we're experiencing higher prices on things that are very, very noticeable. When gas is, let's call it $4 a gallon, and you're trying to plan a summer vacation, it's going to be more expensive. You'll spend more for something that costs less. So that's also going to weigh on your mind about things that you may or may not be doing. And if your food costs a little bit more and travel costs a little bit more and everything seems to have a little more anxiety tied to it or uncertainty tied to it, well, here we go. So the government's not quite open yet, and the war is, now it's a ceasefire, not quite over with yet either. So that's weighing on a lot of people's minds. So I don't know if people are rushing out the door in June to put their house on the market and signs in the ground. And I don't know if that's going to happen, in July either. Now we'll see. Now, in the background of this, there's a new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, and he's out there right now getting ready for his first Fed meeting, which will be in the middle of June. And we'll talk about this more in the weeks to come. It was widely anticipated that he would come in and start chopping rates down. But it's a super hard thing to do, to cut rates when there's the specter of inflation out there and high gas prices. And, how do we manage that inflation? Well, that's something that Jerome Powell spent a long time trying to manage. And, he did some good things probably, and he took some criticism probably. We saw it all play out. So now what will we see? There's a sentiment out there that despite the desire to drop interest rates, I'm not sure that's going to happen in the middle of June, if all these things are still unsettled or just settled a day ago. And if we find that there's not a drop in interest rates in the middle of June, now we're talking the middle of July for that to take effect. And if you're waiting on interest rates to go down a lot, it might go down a little bit in July. And as we get further into that summer buying season, I think what you're going to find is that the real activity could be more offers and more homes on the market and things going under contract in mid-July to close in August or maybe even September. So if your historical data finder says June and July are the busiest months, I have found August to be a relatively busy month most years. September kind of quiet. Would it be interesting to find out if just perhaps August and September were busier months? Now, before you think, wait, we're there, October, you're going to be dealing with midterm elections. And while it shouldn't have anything to do with home values, it does have to do with people's desire to move because they're distracted, again, with the votes and who's going to have a majority and who's going to win this and that. It gets in the way of things. So once those elections take place, first week of November, I think then you'll say, okay, so now we got that all solved out there. And we might be looking at some November contracts. By that time, I would like to think that interest rates will be a lot lower because that's what the Fed, has been looking to do, or at least the executive branch of our government, namely the president, is really wanting to lower interest rates. What if they come at the end of the year and there's a substantial drop off in November? Could that be a catalyst for a Christmas rally? Just like the stock market. And you might see a bunch of closings that are happening end of November and in December, maybe for tax reasons by the end of the year, maybe just because there's enough inventory and the rates are low enough and the homes are affordable enough for people to make the activity then. So to recap, what is this roller coaster ride going to look like for the second half of the year? I think it's going to be kind of quiet, then a little more active. So June and July, moderate level of business transaction of homes. I think August could be a place where you see a lot of activity. And even in September, it might outperform most other Septembers over the last 20 years. That would be noticeable and notable. October, you basically some closings come out of September, but a slowdown in new contracts coming up to the midterm elections. And then as we find perhaps some more relief in interest rates, an uptick in November with December closings to finish out the year pretty strong with a really optimistic tone going into 2027. Now, it's early for all these projections, but I've always been unafraid to put an opinion out there and let you decide what if you think it's valid, or if you have some dissension or disagreement with it. That's where you get to drop the comment below. Definitely hit the subscribe button. We're going to be talking about this a lot over the next couple of months. This is Ron Wojciechowski from the Black Hole of Real Estate.